Well, I arrived at Leicester about 6 months ago, September 1st, from Denmark, University of Roskilde, and after 12 years in my previous work position, I came here. Well, they follow a couple of lines, but generally they're about. I come out of audience studies, I would say, and popular culture. Did a PhD on Brazilian soap operas and how low-income urban women in Brazil make sense of soap operas. So that was kind of the audience studies and the popular culture, the TV fiction, and but it was embedded in a developing context and developing nation. So and I've kind of kept to an interest around development research, around how people in developing countries make sense of the media. But I've increasingly embedded that in a more strategic concern, or in within research around strategic communication, which today is about communication for development, communication for social change, and especially how organizations in the world of international development cooperation, how they communicate with their stakeholders, with their audiences, with their uh, beneficiaries, you might say. So that's the field I've been working in for a long time. A lot of health communication over the years. Now it's more about citizen engagement around processes of good governance, and you might call it political communication. I have two projects that I spend a lot of time on right now, research-wise. One is finishing a book. I say that I sat until late last night working on the index of a book which is going to be published in May, which is a more conceptual piece, a more theoretical piece. It's called Communication and Social Change: A Citizen Perspective, and it's going to be out in May on Policy Press if you're interested. And it's a book where I try to bring together, on one hand, the way communication has been conceived in the field of international development cooperation, UN agencies, NGOs, and governments, how they communicate around development challenges, and on the other hand, how social movements go about the same things. So I'm bringing in some of the readings around social movements, use of especially digital media, and trying to see how that is challenging the field of communication for development as we understand it traditionally. So that's a book which is done, but it has some spin-offs. So I'm spending quite some time on that still. And then my more empirically oriented project, which has been running for 3-4 years now, has 1 year left, is a project in Kenya, which is about how I'm looking. We're a group of 10 scholars together, working on understanding the use of social media amongst different groups of population in Kenya. And I'm looking into how young men in rural and peri-urban areas of Western Kenya make use of social media. So that's the short version. I have one kind of key work which and person who has fascinated me all the way through my career, which is Paulo Freire from Brazil, who I had the good fortune to meet a few times and bring to Denmark when I was a young student back in the mid 80s, late 80s, 1987. We brought him to Denmark, and his work is I mean speaks very much to what I'm still doing, and I think it's guided me along all the way. Especially some of his key concepts around digital, no, sorry, around dialogic communication and around conscientization, or what you might call awareness raising, the relationship between action, reflection, and action. And I mean, there are a number of issues we can go into, but Paulo Freire is definitely a key scholar. If I were to name one closer to home here, I would say a person like Roger Silverstone. I've also read a lot of his work, and he inspired me a lot also early in my career. Well, having just moved to the UK, I'm trying to familiarize myself with the British reading literature. So I went to literary Leicester, saw Fay Weldon and many others. But I've bought a stack of books, especially young new voices in British literature. And I've just read a book by he's called Barney Norris. It's a book about Salisbury. It's called Five Rivers Met on a Wooded Plain. It's about, yeah, people meeting. It's a, yeah, I'm trying to get myself into the literature of the UK. It's quite a entertaining experience. I'm really happy about being here in Leicester and working here at the university. I've met many nice people. It's a very international atmosphere compared to where I came from. So I think the international aspect is wonderful. And the city is manageable. I live here. It's a nice place. I can walk to work instead of taking the highway as I used to for the past 12 years. So that's great. Nice place to be. Good people.